All right, here we are.
Here we are.
How's it going?
A little late.
Just a little bit. Uh, Sorry, Cody. No, I'm just kidding. Um, well, it's been a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually went live. There was our previous Friday, and then was it that Saturday? No, it was that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
We did a live event on your channels
Yeah.
for your books.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then that was actually in a different space in our home, so I took this whole setup and I moved it downstairs.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And so this morning I was scrambling to like put everything back together.
Was it not? It wasn't put back together, huh?
No, the microphones were on the floor over there and stuff.
Good.
So, but we're back up and running now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that it would be kind of fun today to have a more laid back sort of thing and just talk about the past week plus.
Yeah.
And we've got school starting in the next few days. So that's kind of bittersweet, like the house is going to be quiet for the first
Yeah.
time in a while, and we're going to have a little bit more free time. Um,
Well, not really free time, work time.
right.
I guess there will be a little bit of free time, but
Yeah, I was using the two interchangeably, but
yeah.
a little bit more free, like time in our schedule.
Time to work with.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Keep going back to that work word.
Oh, well. Time to play with.
There you go. But it's bitter because I traveled more than usual this summer, so we didn't have quite as much time to do stuff together as we
Yeah.
normally would. And it seems like the summer just flew by.
It did go pretty fast.
We did, I don't know, like we did a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we have traditions that we do every summer, so we stuck with a lot of those. So
Yeah,
that was cool.
it was cool. So it is, yeah, school starts in 4 days.
Yep.
So
We're not counting.
no, it's technically it's 3 days, 22 hours and 15 minutes. I just made that up. I
Yeah,
have no
you
idea.
did.
Like
I know.
I don't think that's even close to being
No.
right. Um so yeah, do you want to just dive into it? It's gonna be kind of an unconventional show. We're not gonna get into some of the normal topics we do, but they're related to the podcast. Um but not related to the topics that we normally talk about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
And if the title tipped you off to anything, we're definitely going to talk about the fact that we didn't have a show last week, why that was, and how I had a really great time and you almost had a meltdown. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the In the Boat with Ben and Rachel podcast. I am Ben.
And I'm Rachel.
And this podcast exists to be an encouragement for our fellow creators. Rachel and I are creators working full time from home, raising a family of 6 children, and trying to balance our creative passion with our just life responsibilities and stuff like that. So we feel like through our discussions and our stories, we can be an encouragement and a motivator to other creators. So we hope that's what we're doing here. But today is going to be a little bit different. We took last week off. We live stream these podcast episodes every week on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Ben Tolson. You can watch these shows every Friday at 11:30-ish Central Time, with the occasional exception, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. We took last week off, And that was because I was traveling. I've actually been doing more of that this year than I have in other like normal years, especially with the pandemic and stuff. You know, there were a couple of years in there where we didn't really do any traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had a team retreat that I went to kind of near in the spring, and then at the very beginning of the summer I went to a conference, and then I just went on a kind of a road trip with my dad and my brother. We went to the Grand Teton Mountains and also to Yellowstone. And that was like an 8-day trip, right? Something like that.
I think you were gone for like 8.5. It was almost 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, and so when that happens, you know, it was kind of between like, do I go right at the end of summer, right
Mm-hmm.
before school starts, or do I go when school is already in session? Those were kind of our two options. And I, in hindsight, might have gone with the school already being in session.
I think school would have been easier, but yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah. So anyways, Rachel was by herself. And I wanted to address that first because we haven't really talked about like a protocol on this podcast. One for when um one or both of us are not going to be here, like what happens with our live show.
Hmm.
But also like we didn't talk about it, and part of the reason we didn't talk about it is because in the past, if I've been leaving to go on a trip, um, just the fact of mentioning publicly that I'm going to be away makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable because like, oh, I'm going to be here by myself,
Yeah.
and now because it's public, like potentially people know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like we most of the people we know, that's not a concern.
Right.
But it's really like, okay, but we're introducing the possibility that the wrong person hears that and takes advantage of that vulnerability. Um, and you know, if it were the other way around, obviously, I probably wouldn't feel as uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, you know, for obvious reasons, but that's we hadn't really had a plan for like, okay, so how do we communicate with people? Um, what is our protocol? How can we set expectations so that when and if we have a week that we skip, it's not because I mean now kind of mentioning that it's like, so if it's a week that they don't have a podcast, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I think the simplest way to deal with it is to do something that we've been talking about doing for a while, and we'll get into this, and that is having scheduled episodes ahead of time, delineated by seasons,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always been something that's been kind of a discussion about like how do we want to do this podcast, and we just and this is kind of my style, like we just dove into doing it because I was like, if I don't just dive in and start doing it, I feel like it's never going to happen. So we did that, and we stuck with it, and I'm really glad that we've been mostly consistent with doing this weekly rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's time to add a little bit more structure. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I am always a fan of structure. So the idea of seasonal type a seasonal type schedule appeals to me just because it doesn't mean that we have to all year round show up, you know.
Yeah.
And so it builds a little bit of rest, a little bit of natural rest into it as well, where we can account for trips or anything like that.
Yeah, and I feel like when we talked about it, the thing that really excited me was it gives us more of an opportunity to plan ahead
Mm-hmm.
because, well, it's for a couple of different reasons. And this is something that I acknowledge that, we've been doing these weekly live episodes, but if you look at our podcast website, I think we only have 3 episodes up there out of,
So there's
I
a
honestly,
backlog.
yeah, I honestly don't know how many we've actually recorded at this point. I want to say it's around 15 or 16, probably more than that.
Yeah.
That I need to go back and edit and publish. So I've got a long backlog of like editing work that I need to get to. And so having a little bit of a break between like, okay, we're going to close out this season and then we're going to start the following season and like have a date for that.
Mm-hmm.
Having that little break would be nice because I'd be able to catch up on some of that. Um, but it's also nice because like if we think about a season as like 10 or 12 episodes, we can sit down ahead of that season and actually brainstorm like here are the 10 or 12 topics we're going to cover.
Mm-hmm.
We can also talk to you, listener, about that and invite you into the process. Like, what are some things that you want to hear about from us?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that would be really great because we can incorporate that. And so I think the benefits to doing it that way really excite me. I can make all of the thumbnails, I can write all the descriptions, we can schedule them all out.
Mm-hmm.
I can make Facebook events and we can like invite we can build up more buzz, and it just feels so much more intentional that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we can schedule it however we want to around the things that are happening in our lives. And it's we
And
create
not have to announce to the world that we're
yeah, well
leaving our
it's
house for a week, or
it's better communication for our listeners, and it's better communication, or it's better setting of expectations,
mm-hmm.
which I think is a really positive thing.
Yeah.
So I have, after working for 3 years, I just celebrated 3 years working for Podia, and one of the employee benefits is we get a month-long sabbatical. And I have no idea when I'm going to take that
Yeah.
or what I'm going to do. I still have a little bit of vacation time left, and then we always get a little bit of time off around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's going to be part of the discussion too when Rachel and I sit down and we figure out, okay, what is this next season? So we're thinking about doing like a fall season.
Mm-hmm.
We might take what we've done so far and break it up into 2 seasons retroactively, or we might just call it 1 season. I don't know. Like if we've got,
yeah, I think it should be 1.
well, if we've got like 20 episodes and then season
Yeah.
2, I'm trying to think about for the person who's going back and like listening
Mhm,
through
the
our
backlog.
library. Yeah.
We'll figure
Well,
out
yeah,
those
we'll
things
figure
later,
that out.
But yeah, fall season, spring season, and that way, like the kids are in school, we don't have the stress of trying to record when all of them are home.
Yeah, and what we might do too is like we might break for the summer as far as like editing and publishing episodes, but we might still hop on and do a live thing just for
Yeah.
fun,
Mhm.
where it's like, hey, we're just
Hey,
gonna,
how's everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
so
Well, and next summer is going to be a little wild too because I have a big book release in June, so
yeah. So
Yeah.
I
I
did,
might be out then.
right, yeah. It might just be me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, yeah, if you're like touring around and you're showing up on, I don't know what the talk shows are nowadays. Is Oprah still doing her talk show?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think Ellen's going off the air.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyways, so I wanted to address all of that up front because I think it's important to acknowledge as a content creator where you're not being as consistent as you want to be, and I feel like just being transparent with our audience in general is always a positive thing. Um, I'd much rather that than set the expectation that like we're going to always be here, always be consistent, and then like stop showing up one day because we
We can't.
we felt so much pressure to live up to something that we couldn't. So I think we always just want to be honest with you about um, how we're doing and what we can handle as content creators and that kind of thing. And I think making necessary moves for longevity is always going to serve folks better than trying to be super consistent at the expense of our ability to continue doing this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this past week.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned already, I went to the Grand Teton Mountains, and that was amazing. If you're listening right now and you're in a safe place where you can do so, look up the Grand Teton Mountains. The pictures will not do them justice, but seeing them in person, my brain couldn't process the scale of them. I mean, they're just massive. And as we were driving up, you know, we were kind of driving toward them, and they were really far off in the distance. And it's one of those things where like, is that clouds or is that mountains? Like, what is that? And because even seeing them from really far away, it's like nothing could possibly be that big. That just doesn't make any sense. If you don't live around mountains, especially, I think that might be the reaction you have. But it was really cool. Spent a couple of days around those mountains, and then we went up to Yellowstone and saw amazing things there, and also had some really fun surprises. So, and there's just too much to tell. I mean, it was just every single day there was something new and interesting and phenomenal, and so I had a really wonderful past 8 days. So tell me about your week.
I'm just tired. No, because it was back to school week, there was a lot of stuff. Like there were 3 appointments the first day you were gone, 3 doctor appointments. There were 3 doctor appointments like the day before you got back. We had to pick up schedules at the middle school. There was meet the teacher. There was like organizing all the school supplies, and I mean it was a lot. I felt overwhelmed pretty much the whole week. Did not get any creative work done whatsoever, because every time I sat down to try, somebody was fighting or had something to tell me. There were so many words. Like when there are 2 of us here, there's at least someone else to talk to for our children. But when it's just one person, I mean, they will talk for hours about Minecraft. One of them is obsessed with Beat Saber, and one of them will tell me in excruciating detail every YouTube video he watched today. And it's just like, I cannot handle the words. And so it was a very overwhelming week. And I think the busyness, I feel really burned out right now, because there was just like, I was running twice a day to different schools and to doctors, and just
dropping people off at work.
Yeah.
We even had, so my stepmom watched the 3 younger ones for a few days. Or it was really for like 4 days, I think, maybe.
It was like 3.5.
Yeah. And then your mom came down and helped a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was still, you know, like I know the chaos at home.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm an extrovert. So I have a lot more energy when it comes to having conversations and listening and stuff like that. Um, and this isn't for like there's a difference when especially like when your kids are young. It takes a lot of energy to pay attention to the things they're interested in because it feels it doesn't feel deep and it doesn't feel as personal, and you kind of have to work, you have to shift your mindset to make it feel that way. And that's just the fact of it. And it's not that that stuff isn't meaningful and interesting to them. The all of those details about the Aikido fighters or whatever they're into, it's really like deep personal stuff. The stuff that energizes adults, you know, usually happens more around things that adults are interested in and getting into more of the meaningful, like emotional conversations, political issues, those things that like in our adult minds, we think, oh, these things matter.
Mm.
These things really matter. Like how powerful your Aikido fighter is compared to this other one. That doesn't affect my life in the same way that, you know. So all of that to say, like having those kind of conversations with kids feels like it just feels like having surface level conversation about things that you're just not interested in
for hours at a time.
Yeah. And it takes a lot more energy for introverts to have those kind of conversations than it does for extroverts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sapped a lot of my energy. And then, you know, having to go out to doctors and I had to interact with them and nurses, and then going to schools, you know, and picking up schedules, and I had to interact with everybody there, and everybody at the middle school, you know, they know I'm an author, so I have to put on a certain persona sometimes and, you know, be on, not look like I'm grumpy. And
well, and not to mention, you recently found out from your doctor that your iron levels are really a little bit low.
Yeah.
And that also,
I have no energy.
when your iron levels are low.
Yeah,
so,
it's just been
So it's just really great timing on my part.
Yeah, you should have seen my schedule. It was just like filled with have to pick up this person here and take this person here and then go to this doctor appointment, and
so
it's like a puzzle.
So I want to say publicly, because I've said this privately too, but I want to say publicly, thank you. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
No, I know. And I'm really grateful. I mean, it was an amazing trip, and getting to do those things with my dad, who's 65, and my brother, who lives in another state, and we don't really get to hang out. You know, my he's one of my best friends. He's an amazing person, and I love my dad dearly, and he's fun to be around, and he's someone I admire a lot. And just getting to spend that time with them, doing something that special, taking a trip. We've never done anything like that together, so it really meant a lot, and I just appreciate you so much.
You better stop.
I'm sorry. I appreciate you so much for your willingness to do what you did and make that possible for me. So thank you.
Well,
and I know it was really hard.
It's
and
what we sign up for, right? So.
Yeah, I guess so.
And now all the school stuff's done, so they're ready to start school.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, like I'll keep looking for ways to. I know you don't ever hold it over me like I owe you anything. You don't do that. But you know, like I want to look for ways to make it up too. So that's something I'm happy to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take a few days off, but
right. So, yeah, I want to close it out just by talking about some of the things that you've got going on in your author career that are really exciting. We didn't really get a chance to mention that. We really actually forgot to mention something pretty significant that happened recently. But I wanted to kind of close out the podcast talking about your Farendale launch, and we had a release party for the last 2 books of a series that you've been working on for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah. I mean, it's an epic fantasy series for middle grade readers, which are ages like 8 to 12 is generally, that's what Farendale, sometimes it's like 9 to 12, but Farendale hits a little bit younger and can go up to the older. And then like anybody who loves middle grade, which I kind of not exclusively read middle grade, but those are like the books that I enjoy the most. And the series I had created it 6 years ago, and the first year released 6 books in it, and then every other year released around 2 or 3, I think. And then the year of the pandemic, I think it was only 1 that released because there was no work to be done. And I had originally planned it to be around 30 books, and finally decided this year, because things were moving so slowly after the pandemic, and I was having a hard time like getting back into the series and just feeling passion for it, I guess. I decided to finish it up in the last 2 books. So it's a 20-book series, published over 6 years, and I think everything ties up nicely. It's a really, really cool world. And so the last 2 books go through it takes fairy tale villains and kind of tells their story on how they came to be villains, sort of accidentally. So the last 2 books tell the story of the Snow Queen, which is a Hans Christian Andersen tale, and then the Sea Witch, which is the famous villain from The Little Mermaid from the Grimm brothers.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd originally set out to do 30 books. It's now 20 books,
20.
which is still a
Yeah,
staggering volume. I mean, that's for someone, looking to fill their summer with,
Yeah.
that would do it. And you absolutely should, whatever age range you enjoy, you'll enjoy these books. This is,
I kind of wrote them for everybody, but it's, targeted toward younger kids. But
yeah, but it's an epic series, and it follows several really interesting, well-developed characters, and because of some of the familiarity you might bring from the fairy tales that you're borrowing from, you might already feel like on some level these characters, and so that's kind of the bonus going into it. So I was just really proud of you for saying, okay, this is a good place to end.
Yeah.
But to write 20 books for a series is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
And the first one is free. So
ebook, the first.
Yeah,
ebook,
the first book is free as an ebook, and you can get that on Amazon. It's called The Treacherous Secret, or you can just do a search for Farendale.
It's written under a pen name, so it's not my R.L. Tolson. It's L.R. Patton. So
yep.
You might be like, is this really Rachel's? But yes, it is.
Yeah.
L.R. Patton is my secret pen name.
Yeah. So we did kind of a launch party / celebration to close out that series. And we did some giveaways and that kind of thing. So we still have, we got posters and stickers.
I still need to send them all out. I'm sorry, everybody who won.
Well, it's not like you've been doing anything. But then, the kind of fun thing I think that comes from this is because of the world that you built there are a lot of other places connected to Ferndale that you can explore and that you may explore in future books.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't want to leave it behind completely. So I already have some plans for books that are they have a different flavor, but I think they'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Once I don't feel so tired anymore.
Right. So I want to encourage you to check out those books. You can go to racheltolson.com, and you should be able to find. I'm almost positive you can find Ferndale there on the page.
Yeah, it should be on the homepage.
Or you can search on Amazon for Ferndale, and you can see all of the
we're going to
books
be
there.
redesigning the site soon, so we'll make it a lot more. It's a good site, but there's some things that need to be fixed.
Yeah, it's always a work
I know
in
websites,
progress.
they always feel like they are works in progress, don't they? Like
Yeah.
they're never done.
On the trip, after we were done with our camping stuff, we were staying in small towns, in hotels and that kind of thing. And so on the drive to a place, we would be searching for like, okay, what restaurants do they have in this town and stuff. And because
Were you being a website snob?
no, I wasn't,
Oh.
because I understand how much work it takes and how much like
Yeah.
effort and stuff. Like if I encountered a website and their information was out of date, it wasn't surprising to me, especially if it's like small town, because there's not a lot of
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have a lot of options as far as like either employees to help keep your website up to date or hiring or contracting someone to do that. So but my dad commented on it, and he's and so like I had to try to explain a little bit from
Yeah.
my perspective as someone who worked in the web design industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Websites are important, but they do feel like they're a sinkhole of work.
Yeah, even the simplest website, like you'd think, oh, this is just like 4 or 5 pages, but they're really hard to keep up.
Yeah, they really are.
They're and to be the one who's running your own business and trying to do that is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Like it really does take outside help.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that's good. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about in this kind of different episode that we're doing?
Not really. I did enjoy having time with my children, but they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
For one person. I think, when you have a family of our size, it really does take 2 people. I mean, I feel like even 3 kids takes 2 people.
Yeah. I think even 1 kid.
Yeah.
So depending on the kid.
I was raised by a single mom, and I told her when she came up, she married my stepdad when I was in 7th or 8th grade. I can't remember, but I told her, I said, I don't know how you did it. Like, I just can't even fathom. I know that I have 3 more children than she did, but my hat's off to single parents, man. You guys are heroes.
Yep. All right. Well, we are going to do a couple more episodes. I'm going to say 2 more episodes, and then we're going to take either 2 or 3 weeks break to catch up on the production of these episodes and the publishing of these episodes as proper podcast episodes, and to schedule out our next couple of seasons. So so we're not going anywhere right away. We'll be here for another couple of weeks. But if you have ideas or things that you'd like to hear from us, as far as topics, either things that we haven't covered or maybe things that we've talked about that you have more questions about, feel free to leave a comment anywhere you're watching or listening to this, you can also go to intheboatpodcast.com and you can fill out our contact form there and leave us a message that way. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you either way, and to invite you to be a part of helping us come up with the topics for this. Either way, I know we'll have plenty to go over. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Again, you can go to racheltolson.com. I'm just going to plug you one more time, and we will talk to you next time. All right. I didn't mean for that to get like emotional and stuff. I wasn't. I was just kind of going with the flow, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're an emotional guy.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I married you.
It's been great to be back though.
Yeah.
And also it's weird, like coming back. I don't know if you've experienced this or if you remember the experience of like, and it hasn't been with you. It's been with the kids. Like I missed you all so much. And I'm like, oh, I missed the kids. I want to like spend time with them, and I just want to give them my attention and stuff. But I've found it really difficult to do that. Like I have felt overwhelmed with them.
Well, it's because you were
8
days
it's almost
without any kind of
it's like my sensitivity to all of that stuff just like is through the roof right now. And so I'm kind of it's kind of like this numbing down process that I have to go through. And that's, you know, honestly, I think when I come back, like when I'm away that long and I come back and I've got that level of sensitivity, that's probably when I'm most like you.
Yeah.
In terms of like
all the time.
Yeah, because I have this, you know, I developed this mechanism where I do tune things out.
Oh yeah, you do.
And it's kind of annoying sometimes, I know, for you and for the boys, because it's like, is he even listening?
They'll ask
like,
a question 5 times and you don't, and I'm like, I can hear it every single time.
But I feel like I would go crazy if I didn't have the ability to kind of like close things. Close things down, kind of go into that, like, I don't know, it's like a tunnel vision kind of thing where it's like, I'm only focused on this one thing in front of me right now.
Yeah, I do not have the ability to tune out.
Yeah.
So that's part of what gets so overwhelming, which is why I did no creative work whatsoever, because just solving the problems around the house felt like creative work.
Yeah. I just watched this movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think I was telling you about it. It kind of gets into themes about the multiverse and stuff, but without giving away too much, there's kind of this depiction of the experience of having multiple lives. You know, and the concept of the multiverse is there are versions of you out there, you know, living all kinds of different possible lives.
Yeah, I could be an extrovert somewhere.
You could be an extrovert who does video production work, you know? So like, so one of the ways they kind of depict this idea is like having a conscious experience of all of those lives in the same moment.
Yeah. I couldn't do that.
And
my brain would explode.
Yeah. But for some reason, when I saw that, it made me think of you. Almost like your level of sensitivity to others and to like the worlds of the people around you.
Yeah.
Like it's more than just like, you know, you're siphoning in that little bit of information that you need. It's like you're open to this whole experience of this other person. And that becomes really overwhelming when you multiply that by the number of people who live in our home.
Yeah.
So
It's true. That's a good insight. That is how I feel.
we should watch that movie together.
Yeah.
I rented it, so sorry.
Mm,
But maybe we could watch it sometime.
maybe, yeah.
But you should definitely check it out. It is as good, if not better, than they say. So
Who are some actors in it?
there, I'm gonna make sure that I.
Oh, I didn't know if it was maybe famous people, but
Yes.
okay.
All right. So Michelle Yeoh is a famous actress who mostly has been in martial arts roles.
Hmm.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. I think it's Ke Huy Quan,
He
who
looks familiar.
the reason he looks familiar is because he was in the Goonies,
Oh, he's
and
Data.
he was amazing in this movie.
Oh,
I mean,
really? Oh,
yeah.
cool. I'll watch it just for him.
Everybody was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was honestly like it was kind of a light cast. It was somewhat light budget, light production crew. Like they had 5 VFX. They
Wow.
had a team of 5 VFX artists. And like usually big budget movies hire entire
Yeah, whole team.
um
Hmm.
so
Interesting.
but it was really good. Very moving. Like I could have, if I wasn't laying in bed next to you and worried about waking you up,
You
because
would've sobbed.
I could have sobbed. It was so good.
I
I
don't
was
know if I
also-
can handle stuff like that, right? Like I'm all about comedy right now. That's about all I can watch.
There is
But-
there are some comedic elements. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. It's got a lot of heart.
Yeah.
So that's it for today's movie review.
I couldn't join because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the theater. I think tomorrow maybe.
Yeah, we're
Let's
actually gonna
see.
have a date.
See Bullet Train.
I don't even know what that's about, but
Well, it's got Brad Pitt in it, so
oh, okay.
it's gonna
If
be
it
good.
had Ryan Reynolds, then it would be. I'm just kidding.
So there was Ryan Reynolds. For some reason I immediately thought of Ryan Gosling.
Oh no.
I'd say he's a comparable Ryan. In other, like, you can't hold a candle to Ryan Reynolds' comedic,
Yeah.
like his personality and stuff. He's very charming.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Gosling, I think, he's definitely got some comedic chops. I think he's more on the side of eye candy than Ryan Reynolds, but just slightly.
Maybe.
Just slightly.
La La Land ruined me to Ryan Gosling. But
Yeah. What are you doing, Ryan? And
La La Land is not a movie for creative people.
I think The Notebook was one of those downers too, because it was. I mean,
that's what's his name? Yeah,
that was
Nicholas. Who's the guy who writes
Nicholas
all those?
Spark.
All of his books are like that.
Yeah.
It's like this. Nobody ends up with the right people, and
Nobody's happy in the end. It's like who
It's
wants those stories, especially
his,
now.
His signature. Yeah.
I will say that about like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think is a really important movie for the time that we're in.
Okay.
I think it's actually one of those kind of movies. It's timeless, and its themes are timeless. I think it's going to be a classic, but it's also, I think it's very relevant to things that everybody's experiencing right now. So
Are you getting kickback from this movie? Because you sure are.
I just
I'm just
I liked it a lot. All right.
kidding.
Okay, we got to go.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right.